Hey everybody, it is Trags Mike Petralia back with another episode of the Jungle Roar podcast, powered by our good friends at Prize Picks and Game Time, and also by the CLNS Media Network. Joining me again this week is the one and only Geoff Butch Hobson of Bengals.com, doing a tremendous job. 12 months a year, 300 and what should we call it, Butch? 340 days a year, 350 days a year covering the Cincinnati Bengals?
That's a good round number, Trags. As you know, it's never over until it's over, and it's never over.
Right, and there's no off season. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I guess there is an off season, between the end of mini camp in June until late July. That truly is the off season for a lot of people in the front office, a lot of people in the building inside Paycor. They get a chance to get away, but a lot of the players don't necessarily like to get away at that point because they don't want to fall out of conditioning and out of shape. By the time late July comes around, they want to be hitting the ground running.
Yeah, it's and Trags, you go back to the days when that space in mid-June to training camp, that's what you did right away. The door was shut down. The doors were shut right after the season, and you went and you covered college basketball or whatever, hockey, whatever that was after football. But it's interesting you say that about these guys don't want to stop because they've been going at it pretty hard at OTAs, and then they got to stop for 6 weeks. They don't want to do that. So I've always often wondered if are we headed for a situation where they move the mandatory mini camp to maybe mid-July and then go right into training camp. That would seem to make more sense. And then maybe you don't do anything in June. I don't know, but if anything, they keep talking about pushing things back. They keep pushing it back to the Super Bowl, the President's Day, and then you're going to have the draft in May, and then so then what do you do?
Well, that's a great point, Butch. And while we're on the subject, Joe Burrow was asked about this a couple of weeks ago about expanding to an 18-game schedule. And he said that is a big ask. And I guess the working assumption is you have to add another bye week in there, right? If you're going to add another game, the Players Association probably isn't going to go all in with that unless you add another bye.
And then you just throw in all these extra TV dates, Black Friday, Christmas. I mean, you got a Wednesday game. I mean, how do you protect these guys? You have to do it. The least you do is do the double bye. But now, like I said, if you do that right, if I think Joe's right on there, then they would have played. Bengals played pretty close to playing on President's Day. I guess they were a week off. That's where it is now. In the Super Bowl, another week is President's Day, and now where are we? The drafts in May. Everything's pushed back. Another 2 weeks, and instead of just more and more condensing of the thing. And I guess I don't know, where does player safety and the revenue? Where do you find a marriage?
Where do you think the owners stand on this in general? I'm not going to ask you to speak out of turn too much, but obviously they want more revenue, and this is a situation that I think the owners have been pointing to for several years now. They have wanted to get to that even number of 18 games. I think the players have tried to fight it off for as long as possible, but I think it's coming down the pike. I'm, as a reporter, as a columnist, and as a fan of the National Football League, and as a fan of football covering the sport, I have essentially resigned myself to the fact that there's going to be 18 games.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure where. I'm not sure where the owners come down on it. I mean, but I know it always ends up really in the players' court, right? Because if the players don't want to do it, it's not going to happen, right? I mean, and I think that's the, do you just kind of eliminate the preseason games? I mean, they seem to be almost they seem to be almost on the endangered species list, right?
Yeah, they really do, Butch, because
yeah. I mean,
they're
why don't you just get it over with?
essentially the preseason games, not to interrupt you, but the preseason games are really for the bottom half of the roster and those trying to make, let's say the final 4 or 5 spots on a team like the Bengals, a championship caliber roster, or maybe the final 10 spots on a team that isn't projected to be as competitive in the coming season. But that's what you're looking at in terms of the viability of those preseason games and the purpose of those preseason games. But really, and you ask anybody nowadays, the joint practices are where a lot of the work gets done, where a lot of the meaningful preseason snaps or, the snaps during training camp to get yourself ready. That's when those really happen.
I think maybe that's where we're headed. You have one at home, you have one on the road, and that's it. And go into the regular season. The only thing is too is you have these first year head coaches. The first year running a program. Do they need a game or two for their operation? But I think that's taken care of in the spring and summer. We saw Zach Taylor when he was in his first year coaching the team. He got a lot of that stuff hammered out in spring and summer with his coaches. At the end of with scrimmages and mock games and stuff like that, you can hammer stuff out like that. So yeah, I think we're in. I don't know, Trags, if you ever covered 6 preseason games.
I did not.
I didn't either. I didn't either, but I'm sure there are guys around who may say that they, may straddle 6 preseason games to no preseason games.
Yeah, that would be pretty remarkable. I think that would be going back to 1978? Didn't they get rid of when the NFL went to 16 regular season games in 1978? I think that's when they did away with the 6 preseason games.
Yeah, because I know, wasn't there one year? I know they played almost 7. Wasn't one year they played 7? I want to say the Bengals did. And was it one year they played the Hall of Fame
74 or 75 when they played Washington in the Hall of Fame game? They played 7 preseason games.
It might have been the hottest game in Bengals history if it had been a regular season game. It was the guy Lapp still talks about that game. Great Dave Lapp.
Might have been his rookie year, right? That would have been his rookie year.
74 would have been, yes, 74. So that's, and they talk about, 88, they played the Hall of Fame game too, if I'm not mistaken. They talk about, and that was 10 years after. That was still a 4-game preseason. But, you're at Wilmington, you were at training camp for, if you're in the Hall of Fame game, you got to go in a week early. And back then it was, there was
right around July 4th is when they reported.
Right. And it's just, it's just another, the game's, it's just a different game. It's not only a different game, it's a different society.
Very much. Speaking with Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com, this Jungle Roar podcast powered by Prize Picks and Game Time on the CLNS Media Network. Butch, I think the 2024 Bengals schedule will be defined by a 3-game, 10-day period in December. Dallas Cowboys on the road, Monday Night Football, short week. They play at Tennessee in the Brian Callahan reunion game, also Tyler Boyd. And then 4 days after that, at home, Battle of Ohio, number 2, at home on a Thursday night prime video game against the Cleveland Browns. That's 3 games, 10 days. That's a huge stretch.
Yeah, I think, but I think they get, not that any game is easy, but I think it's a pretty good stretch up until that stretch. I think up until the December 1st home game against Pittsburgh, which comes off a bye. I think, it's not it's no day at the beach what they face in those 10 days, but they're no different than what Baltimore and Pittsburgh is facing in the same month. They both, all 4 teams have that. I think all division teams are looking at if you can get there, December is going to make you break you. So what else is new? But I think this year, it's given that the division is so tight. I mean, you can't see it any other way but being decided in December, because they're so even, and so many division games are left, and you're talking about the only division that had 4 winning teams. It's going to be pretty close to that again. And, I think, from December 8th until, January 5th, it's all out there in those 28 days.
I like this schedule, Geoff. I think the Bengals, you can definitely see 12 wins in this schedule if they get off to a good start. And there's been so much focus over the last several years about the Bengals getting off to a good start. Of course, they open with Bill Belichick, less New England Patriots, Gerard Mayo's first game as head coach, replacing Bill Belichick. And that will be, to me, a game that really will define the Bengals' first quarter of the season. That is a team you should beat coming out of the gates, no questions asked. Patriots are going to be a team in transition. They may start Drake May at that point, the rookie quarterback. They may start Jacoby Brissett. By the way, I do have to ask you this, because you wrote this. If the Pats cross the Concord Bridge to get to May, the Bengals would face the estimable 9-year journeyman backup Jacoby Brissett, 1-1 in NFL openers, 1-1 against the Bengals. If the Pats cross the Concord Bridge, explain, please.
Well, if they use Brissett, as their bridge guy, if the Patriots, and what's the most famous bridge in Patriots history is the Concord Bridge.
Concord
I guess I could have used another sentence to explain it, Trags, I guess. But if they, if they use Brissett as their bridge,
yes,
right?
Now
so I guess I could have used.
Thank you.
I could have explained that a little bit, but
I wasn't trying to make fun of you, mind you. I was just that was it for those who didn't grow up in New England or didn't work there for a long time. Certainly, I don't think everybody would necessarily understand that reference. That's why I'm giving you this chance.
But I should have said the most famous. He would be the second most famous bridge in Patriots history.
There we go.
All right. I should have done that. I'll go back and edit that.
No, please don't.
Because you can do that on
You can do it the way it is.
But I would say, after reading a little bit of Ben Volin since the schedule came out, that Brissett looks more and more like that could be a possibility. But that's a long way to go, though, too.
I don't think they spend $7 million on the guy to have him sit the whole season. I think part of the purpose there with Jacoby is and I said this with Joe Daneman on the Jungle Roar pod last week when the schedule came out, you spend that kind of money. I think you want to use him to help, pave the way a little bit for Drake May, and you don't throw him in right away. I don't think Drake May is Joe Burrow. In other words, I don't think you throw him into the lion's den right out of the chute. I don't think Drake May has the grasp of complete will have the grasp of a complete NFL offense the way Joe Burrow did in his rookie year for being a rookie quarterback. I think they're two different animals there.
Yeah, well, Joe Burrow wasn't Joe Burrow in that when he went against the
Chargers.
When he went against Tyrod Taylor in that opener in 2020, he wasn't Burrow either. But there's also, it's just not Drake May, Trags. It's Jaden Daniels 2 weeks later at home in a Monday night game. It's not just Jaden Daniels. It's Bryce Young under a first-year head coach the week after that. So the opportunity they have, you get not only maybe facing 2 rookie quarterbacks in their first month of their career, but they get 3 first-year coaches of their program right out of the gate, which to me is a huge advantage.
I think the Bengals, Butch, have had a good offseason so far, bordering on very good in terms of addressing all of their needs. We'll start in free agency, and I think they really shored up the back end. And I think anybody who watched the Bengals last year, 2 things stuck out about their defense. They were not good stopping the run, at times terrible stopping the run. And secondly, they gave up way too many big plays on the back end. You add Geno Stone, and Von Bell. You bring Von Bell back. I think that goes a long way in terms of turning the clock back a couple of years to 2022 in that defense. And then certainly when you bring in a guy like Sheldon Rankins and pair him with maybe a rookie and Chris Jenkins, I think he's going to get some run. McKinley Jackson, we'll see how much play he gets. But Chris Jenkins, I think, is going to play a pretty big role. But my point is, as I ramble here on the Jungle Roar pod, is that I think the Bengals have done a good job addressing a lot of needs, especially on defense here in the offseason. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, if you went down their laundry list of what they needed, they pretty much checked all the boxes. I mean, I'm trying to think of one that they left off. I mean, they made and they added a first round corner, and all they did was make a position switch, which I think shows that their depth that they have by able to move Dax Hill from safety to cornerback. I mean, that's a pretty and I know, talking to Charles Burks, the cornerbacks coach, says it's like, he feels like he's got a first round cornerback in his room.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, that's a big statement from Charles Burks.
So, and I also think, so you've improved yourself by looking at your own roster, which I think is huge. But yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. It's the stopping the run, and it's allowing that big play. I think bringing Von Bell back should really help that communication. I mean, I think that was clearly a problem. The veterans will tell you that they had a problem communicating with some of the young players. With that, Dax was new at safety. Jordan Battle was new at safety. Nick Scott, who's now with the Panthers, he was a new player learning the system, and it was just the communication with the safeties was just wasn't what it was. And now when you one stroke of the pen, and you're right back there with Bell, who knows this. Bell is the nerve center of the defense that went to a Super Bowl and went back to went to 2 straight conference championship games. So, I mean, that was about as huge as you get. And I mean, I don't know how much Von's going to play, but just the ability to work with teach that defense to Geno Stone and the Battle and those guys. I mean, that's huge. That's something they didn't have last year.
What did you think of Trey Hendrickson showing up last week? You had the scoop on Monday. You got him after his practice on Monday. Then he spoke on Tuesday to us and the general media. Your thoughts on what I thought was a very reflective Trey Hendrickson. He really, I think, wanted to get his message out, articulated it really well.
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson is not a team wrecker. He's a good team guy. I mean, I think he's he's a guy who, he walks to a different drummer. He's a unique guy, but I think he's a team player. He's committed to the team, but he's also got he's got a family to feed as well. But I mean, I think to me it was the fact, what he said was, that once the young guys start getting out there, the rookies are coming in. This is how you build your team. This is when your team is going to be there. And that, you start to build your team, and he felt like he had to be there. I thought, Trey just has to work these things out. But I know this. I know this about Trey Hendrickson. From whatever time the game is and whatever day it is, Sunday, 1:00 until 4:00, he's going to be a man on fire. He's going to be one of the great pass rushers in the league. And I just thought it was, I think it shows you, but I think the fact that he did show up, I think it shows you that he is thinking about his teammates, because, he does, I think he felt like that he's got, I think he feels a little bit of a responsibility there as a team leader. I thought it was really a look into his personality.
Biggest development of the offseason so far, in my eyes, Joe Burrow back on the practice field when he was to start offseason practice. Not really missing a beat, I don't think. I mean, the way I look at it, he's back on the field 3 weeks before minicamp. I think that's a pretty good sign. Now, that's pretty much what he expected the timeline to be, barring any setbacks. Knock on wood, he hasn't had any yet. So he's been able to get back on the field. He looks good throwing the ball. He admitted to us, Butch, that there's going to be soreness, there's going to be some pain. He's going to have to fight through that. He compared it to coming back from the ACL, where maybe you take 2 steps or 3 steps forward, then you take a step back because the pain gets to be, or soreness gets to be, too much. But I think that's the biggest development of the offseason, to see Joe Burrow back out there on the field, throwing the ball all over the practice field.
Yeah, there's no question. I thought the other thing too, Trags, and maybe the most significant thing he has said in a long time, was when he said, maybe he's going to, he'll back off. He's getting to know his body now, 5th year in the league.
Yep.
He's a guy that learns every time he goes out to practice, he learns something. Every time, he goes, walkthrough, he learns something. He's one of those guys, he's a stickler trying to get better. What did he say? I think he said he's addicted to, improving, right?
Yes.
And that's a pretty impressive statement. But the fact that he said, hey, maybe I'm going to back off here. I'm going to back off more than I have in the past. That to me, that really shows the signs of. We know the guy's a terrific leader of men in the room, but getting to know yourself sometimes is harder, in your body and what you're asking it to do. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. That hey, maybe he's not going to. Maybe he'll back off maybe more than he has in the past.
You talk to people around the building, Butch, and I would assume that the thoughts around Paycor, seeing Joe Burrow out on the field throwing the way he is, and by my eye, my layperson's eye, he looks pretty doggone good. Maybe there are mechanical things that the coaching staff sees, but what do you get in a sense of talking to people around the building is the feeling watching Joe Burrow out on the field?
No, I think they're pleased that he's where he is. I think that's why we can sit here and say 12 wins. That's why we can sit here and say, we can see 12, 13 wins out there. Whereas if he was not doing this, we wouldn't be saying that. If he was a couple of weeks behind, or he wasn't.
He's a separator. Like Zach Taylor's always said, there are plays to be made at the end of games that make him a $219 million quarterback. Remember that famous quote from last season when he was before he got hurt? And I don't know if it was the Buffalo game. There was a game where a play had to be made at the end, and he said, "This is where you prove to be a $219 million quarterback." I'm paraphrasing, but you get the gist.
Yeah, I think everybody's just cautious. I think they're encouraged, but they know there's a ways to go. And I think that Burrow, I got that sense from Burrow too. And I think people take the lead from him. I think he's we've been down this road before. Let's get to the gate. Let's get to the gate. I think that's what I was kind of impressed with, talking about how it was kind of like he was telling us, look. Championships aren't won in May,
Right.
And it was. I thought it was just another sign of a guy who's, he is what we thought he is. He's a terrific leader, but I think a guy who can really, he never gives a bad news conference. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys.
No, he does not. You're right about that.
And he'll, if you ask him a good question, he'll give you a better answer.
Yes, and that is the way it should be, by the way. When are we going to see Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the practice field?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know.
I have a theory, but go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Trace, because
my theory is Joe Burrow's going to have a conversation, and whenever it is that Joe Burrow feels like he needs Jamar and T out there to rep with him to get ready for the season, that's when they'll be out there. Whether that is mandatory minicamp, whether that is the first day of training camp, whatever that day is. And I think it'll probably be minicamp. That would be my guess. If they don't show up this week, we're looking at minicamp before those two players get out there on the field. I would think that Joe Burrow would want T, Jamar, and Jermaine Burton all out there on the field because, I understand Trenton Irwin has a role on this team still. No question about that. He's a trusted receiver. I understand Andre Yoshavash and certainly Charlie Jones have their roles. But to me, Burton, Chase, and Higgins, that is what you're looking at.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, will T sign his tender? These are all things that are going to be, will they reach a deal before July 15th? They have until July 15th to do a long-term deal. Where's Joe going to take these guys to throw? Will Joe take these guys to throw somewhere before training camp? Will that happen? That's, they've usually done that. I think they've gotten in some throws between the mandatory mini and the start of training camp. Usually something happens there. So, yeah, I don't know, Trags. It's certainly interesting to watch. I mean, they've already got a great chemistry with Burrow. Now how many snaps, how many practices, how many weeks to get it back to where it was? I think only they know.
All right, and your thoughts so far on rookie receiver Jermaine Burton? I think there's been a lot of buzz, and rightfully so, on him and what he could bring to the offense.
I mean, all you got to do is look at a guy. He's played 50 games in the SEC, and he's got 18.5 yards per catch for his career.
That's a big number.
Yeah, so that says enough to me because he's playing against the elite of the elite down there. So, to me, the SEC is like it's like the AAA of the AFC North. You're going to get you're going to get a lot of the same looks and a lot of the same elite players at those elite positions. So, that's a good sign. I just looking at him out here, just from the from looking at it from the eye. I mean, he's got really good hands, and he can and he's got good speed. I mean, he can run under the ball. So, I mean, but it's hard to tell. I want to see him with a cornerback across from him. I mean, all this stuff won't happen till training camp, obviously. But I think we know he's we all know he's been he's been tutored by TJ Houshmandzadeh, so he's obviously getting well coached. He's getting well coached here by Troy Walters, so I think he's one of the most underrated guys in the league. I mean, you don't churn out the numbers that these receivers have churned out. Talent's a lot to do with it, but obviously they're getting really coached up by Troy Walters, and I think that Burton walks into a really good situation there. He walks in from Houshmandzadeh to Troy Walters, so that's so the guy's prepared, and look who he played for in college. Two of the best programs in the country. So if there's ever been a guy more fit to play wide receiver for the Bengals, outside of AJ Green and some of the other first rounders, I'm not sure. I'm not sure you find too many who fit as well as Burton.
Where is Amarius Mims on opening day in terms of the roster depth chart?
Yeah, I think he's a backup. I think Trey Brown's their guy. Like everybody else trying to pick out. I'm not sure I'm going to put him in after the bye week because that's TJ Watt, right? So. Yep. I'm not sure that's a great one, but I mean, I think at some point, you got to figure he's going to be helping them. But I think they got a lot of faith in Trey Brown. I think that's why they signed him. They know he's a professional.
Trent Brown.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Trent Brown. He's a professional pass blocker. I mean, he is a excellent pass blocker. Has been down through the years. He's their guy for this year, and whatever work Mims can get, he can get. I'm not sure they're going to try and push him in there. So, but I think, he'll probably see it. Probably just going to see action whenever they go short yardage or anything like that. I would imagine he's probably going to be in there. But I mean, there's no question that they love the guy. I mean, even since they've drafted him and he's been out there at practice. I mean, the guy looks the part. He plays the part. He says all the right things. The veterans have taken a liking to him. So. I think they're playing with house money there because I mean that's one of the reasons it was a hell of a pick because they don't have to rush him in there at a premium spot.
One player that I think could surprise people in a very positive way and produce as a rookie is Chris Jenkins. Everybody loves his attitude, his chants of "Who Dey" already, and obviously he believes the mantra and he is very enthusiastic. But if you watch his explosiveness already in the individual drills, and I get it, they're not in pads, they haven't done anything. He is an athletic freak. You understand the mutant nickname and from where it came.
Yeah, I mean, he's, you talk about a guy as advertised, terrific around the building, always has something to say, always has a pleasant word to say to you, strikes up a conversation with you. Certainly he's got the intangibles off the field, and we know he knows what, it's funny, his dad, Chris Jenkins, was a different player than he was. He was Chris Jenkins, the dad, was a mammoth guy in the middle there, 330, and his son's about 30 pounds or so lighter, and he's built more like his uncle, Cohen Jenkins. Kind of looking at that a little bit this week about how the guy, really, when he watches tapes, he's probably, he's watched tape of his dad, but he's probably kind of models his game probably more on his uncle just because he's.
That's an interesting point, Butch. I'm glad you brought that up.
Built that way. But, I think, too, Jenkins has been a guy. Here are two guys I think are going to, surprise people, too. I think not surprise people because I think people know about Fig Newton, Josh Newton, the corner out of TCU.
He was next.
yeah, that. And I think the safety from Ole Miss, I've been hearing some good buzz about him, Anthony. Been hearing a lot of good things about him.
Internal buzz, Butch, if I can press there a little bit.
Internal buzz. That's a good one. That's
well, that's good because if there is internal buzz about a particular player, that to me signals that the coaches believe he's picking up things at a pretty high clip.
I mean, they got a pretty good. To me, they got a good thing going over there on in the secondary because of how they're coached. Anarumo, secondary coach. Broke into the league as a long-time college secondary coach.
Right.
Coach, cut his teeth in the NFL as a secondary coach. Jordan Kovacs is a new safety coach this year. He's never coached a position, but he's been in the defense for 5 years. He's an NFL safety. He played a couple of years as an NFL safety. So, these guys got, between Anarumo and Burks has done a great job with young talent. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt, DJ Turner. These guys are, I think, coming out of the gate. That we're talking about Cam Taylor-Britt as a Pro Bowler, right? Yeah. I mean, as a potential Pro Bowler. Turner, I think Turner played really well. He hit a little bit of a wall late, but I think that's, given that he was a rookie, I think we can give him that's what happens when you're a rookie. You're learning, but he really showed flashes early. So I think, Charles gets a lot out of young players. And so it's going to be interesting to see what, I think Dax Hill and Fig are in good hands.
Could Dax Hill, Geoff, become a Kyle Hamilton type of player? I've heard some buzz about that because, the Ravens essentially use him, right, as a third safety. Right. And they bounce him all over the secondary. Yeah. To me, that seems like a natural fit inside what Lou Anarumo likes to do with the Bengals defensive backs.
Well, the Bengals did the Bengals took the Ravens took Kyle Hamilton instead of Dax Hill. So, but I think, in that draft, but I know Dax Hill's a very talented guy.
And very versatile.
And I think they feel like he can do anything they ask him to do. And if that's what Lou wants him to do, I think he can. There's no question to me he can do what Kyle Hamilton does. I mean, you look. I thought Dax did. I know Dax. A couple big plays, and Dax is under scrutiny.
So to me, I don't think Dax Hill played necessarily poorly or really below standard. That was never the issue.
Right.
The issue was he able to command the secondary the way his position called for him to command it? And I would say the answer is no. Even by his own admission late in the season, he realized that there were communication breakdowns. And, in the end, that falls on the guy making the calls back there. And that was Dax Hill's responsibility, correct?
Well, I mean, he had never played that position before, certainly in the NFL. I mean, remember when he was a rookie, most or all of his snaps were in nickel. When he, so he played mostly nickel at Michigan. You know, he played a lot of nickel at Michigan.
Right.
So that was, I mean, like I say, you give him another year in the system, and who knows?
See, I think the way I look at that, Butch, is I don't know if the Bengals feel like they are in a position when they're ready to try and win a Super Bowl that they want to experiment anymore. I think they want more of a sure thing, and I think that's why they brought, Von Bell back. I think that's why they signed Geno Stone in free agency. Maybe I'm totally reading this incorrectly, but there's more support around Dax Hill. If for whatever reason Dax Hill was called upon to move back to safety, injury, what have you. Am I reading that right? Or
I mean, I think if putting Bell back there with him would have helped him. I mean, I think would have given him if you kept him in the same spot and brought back Bell. Like I said, I think he was, but they didn't. They decided, and I don't know if that. Like I said, I think it's more. I don't think it's he can't do it. We're trying to win it all. I think it's more what does he do best. What does he do best? That to me, that was the conversation. Let's get him in the right spot, and that's so now you have the Kyle Hamilton conversation now.
By the way,
he's not coming. He's not Jesse Bates. Maybe and I think he could have been. But what does he do best? And I think that's what the conversation was.
We're heading into late May. I think the Bengals have had a very good offseason to kind of wrap up this conversation. I think they are on track for where they need to be in terms of getting Burrow back healthy and making another run at an AFC North division title. I think one of the big objectives this year, and we said it this time last year before Burrow got hurt twice, is the number one seed. This team feels like it's built to finally make a run at winning the number one overall seed in the AFC and getting every playoff game at home. I know that has been one of the big objectives of Zach Taylor.
Yeah, I think they attacked the offseason, I think, with the AFC North in mind, because I think if they think they win the AFC North, they're probably going to have a seed. You're going to. I mean, if you win the AFC North, you're probably the number one or the number two seed. I mean, that's it. And I think that they feel like just look at what the things they did. Trags, you walked them through it. You're exactly right. To me, Jenkins is that's a shot across the bow against Pittsburgh that drafted a guy in the second round. I think Burton is a shot against the bow against Baltimore that drafted that drafted a corner. I think it was a Mims is an AFC North pick. If you didn't play in the AFC North, maybe you do pick a corner or maybe maybe a wide receiver there. But no, you're playing the AFC North. You got to get, you got to go big in the first round. So I thought it was an AFC North draft and an AFC North free agency. I think Rankins, I think, is going to prove to be they would have loved to have had DJ Reader back. But if you can't get him back, then you've got a very good three technique against the run, and you've also drafted highly there. So I think they are. I agree with you, Trags. I think they are. I think they're suited to make a run at the division, which in turn would give them the big seed.
More importantly, Butch, I love your chapeau.
Do you like my hat too? But I thank you very much, sir.
Very good. Well played.
Chapeau could be. I thought you might be talking about my.
No, a chapeau is French phrase.
Yeah. No. All right. I appreciate you, Trags. We got practice tomorrow. We're going outside.
Correct.
It's probably going to be a bucket head day, doesn't it? Doesn't have to be a bucket hat.
I think it will be for one Geoff Hobson. I would expect to see a bucket hat on you. You don't play golf a lot, right?
I do.
You do.
But the way I play, you would think I don't play. But yes. But Trags, what are you wearing? Because to me, I'm going to look at you tomorrow, and I'm going to.
I'll have a hat on.
Okay, it's the first day of summer.
The big question amongst the Bengal media is whether or not I pull out the banana shirt. Don't think I'm going to do that this early in the spring, in the off season, I should say. But TBD on that. But it'll be a lighter shirt. For once, I don't think I'll be at these practices freezing.
Well,
I have very thin blood.
No one has lived through more Cincinnati weather than you, Trags. So we're going to keep an eye on you. And I know summer is in another month, but we get some summer heat out there this week, so we'll get a little whiff of training camp weather. Keep an eye on the Trags.
And stay hydrated. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been great having you on, Butch.
Always a pleasure to one of the great men in New England media history doing it in Cincinnati. That's big. That's big.
For a baseball recommendation: the Bronx Zoo. If you stream Peacock,
okay, we'll do that.
The three-part documentary, you need to watch it about the 1990 New York Yankees. It is something. You're a baseball fan, and I know you're a Red Sox fan. You're dyed-in-the-wool Red Sox. I get that. You need to watch this Joel Sherman. It's based on the Joel Sherman book.
Joel Sherman's great. Joel
phenomenal,
Sherman's great one,
phenomenal baseball writer. But you need to watch it. Everybody out there, if you're a baseball fan, we're doing some crossover here. But the Bronx Zoo on Peacock, it was a tremendous 3-part watch, and it goes for anybody who lived through that period. It goes lightning fast.
And you were in it. You were in the middle of all that stuff. I mean, it was Trags. You were right there, right? From how long? You were in New England from 93,
right? Through 2020.
Right. So for a wide-eyed kid from Framingham, this is big for me to be on with Trags.
I appreciate that, Butch. He is Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com. You can follow all of his content there, and including, if I can bring this up right now, I don't want to screw this up. His story on the schedule I found very, very entertaining. It's called Bengals Schedule 2024 Matchups to Watch. It's on Bengals.com. He is the one and only Geoff Butch Hobson. Geoff, thanks so much for joining me.
Trags, thanks for having me. I'm going to go back and correct that thing on the Concord Bridge. We'll be good. I'll see.
I will be looking for that adjustment to be made in the copy. He's Geoff Hobson. I'm Mike Petralia, Trags. This Jungle Roar podcast, as always, has been powered by the great folks at Prize Picks and Game Time. Until next week, keep that jungle roaring.